Have you ever heard of a house where blood weeps from the walls? Where mirrors don't show you, but what's standing behind you? I'm taking you deep into one of America's most notoriously haunted homes, the Myrtles Plantation, where 27 restless spirits still wander, seeking revenge on those who wronged them. Every staircase, every corner, every mirror hides a terrifying secret. Did you know a girl named Chloe still roams here, searching for her severed ear? But tonight, we're not just telling stories. We're going inside at 3 a.m., the hour when this house truly wakes for its real residents. If you've got the courage, stay with us, but be warned, after watching this video, you may never look into a mirror alone again. So, are you ready to uncover the truth behind America's most haunted home? Then go ahead, click that subscribe button below if you dare. Deep in the steamy, moss-draped backroads of Louisiana, where the air hums with cicadas and the past never truly dies, stands the Myrtles Plantation, a place where whispers linger and shadows move on their own. Built in 1796, this grand antebellum home hides a history soaked in blood and sorrow. The most infamous ghost, Chloe, an enslaved woman whose story is as tragic as it is terrifying. Legend says she was forced into the master's bed, then caught eavesdropping on family secrets. As punishment, her ear was severed. Desperate for revenge, or maybe just forgiveness, she baked a poisoned cake, killing the master's wife and 2 daughters. But the other enslaved people knew her crime and hanged her from a tree. Now her spirit lingers, her missing ear hidden beneath a green turban, her footsteps creaking on the stairs, her face sometimes glimpsed in antique mirrors, the ghostly children laughing in the halls until their giggles turn to screams, a woman in white drifting through the murder room where a lawyer was shot dead in the 1800s, blood-curdling piano music playing in the dead of night, though no one sits at the keys. Some say the house itself is a gateway, built over an ancient Native American burial ground. Others swear the real horror isn't the ghosts. It's the unsettling feeling of being watched, the cold hand that brushes your neck when no one's there. Dare to spend the night? Many have tried. Few sleep soundly because at the Myrtles the dead don't rest, they remember. If you think the horrors of the Myrtles fade with daylight, you're wrong. The moment dusk settles over St. Francisville, the house wakes up. Guests who've dared to stay tell of phantom knocks at their doors, 3 slow, deliberate raps, a cursed echo of Chloe's severed ear tapping for entry. Some wake to the sensation of invisible hands pressing down on their chests, a suffocating weight pinning them to their beds. Others swear they've seen a little girl in a torn nightgown standing at the foot of their bed, her hollow eyes pleading before she vanishes into the wallpaper. Then there's the mirror in the hallway, the one that never stays clean. No matter how many times it's wiped, foggy handprints reappear, tiny and desperate, like something is trying to claw its way out from the other side. Staff refuse to cover it. Every time they do, the cloth is torn down by morning. But the worst stories come from room 5, where a traveling salesman once took his own life. Those who sleep there wake to the sound of slow, wet breathing beside them, as if something is crouched on the floor watching. One guest swore she opened her eyes to see a man in a tattered suit standing in the corner, his neck bent at an unnatural angle, his lips moving in a silent scream. When she turned on the light, he was gone, but the smell of gunpowder lingered. The Myrtles doesn't just haunt you, it follows you home. Visitors report strange occurrences for weeks after their stay, mysterious bruises, the scent of magnolias where none bloom, the faint sound of a woman humming an old Creole lullaby in the dead of night. Some say the spirits are trapped. Others believe they're hungry. Do you risk a visit? Or will you spend the rest of your life wondering, what if they're real? Beneath the peeling paint and genteel southern charm of the Myrtles lies something far older, something hungry. Locals whisper that long before the plantation was built, the land was sacred to the Tunica Biloxi tribe, a burial ground for their stolen dead. When the house was erected atop their bones, the soil itself turned resentful. Now the earth groans beneath the foundation, and at midnight, guests claim to hear drum beats throbbing under the floorboards, a funeral rhythm that wasn't there before. The Confederate soldier seen limping across the wraparound porch, his uniform rotting, his jaw unhinged in a silent wail. He's always holding something, a blood-stained letter no one can read. The crying lady, a spectral figure in a tattered hoop skirt, sobbing into her hands near the grand staircase. Get too close and her head snaps up, revealing empty sockets where her eyes should be. The shadow man, a towering silhouette that slithers along the walls, always just out of sight. Those who've glimpsed him say he smells like burnt sugar and decay. Every reflection in the Myrtles is a lie. Guests catch glimpses of figures standing behind them, faces they don't recognize, mouths stretched too wide. Some see Chloe's noose dangling just over their shoulder. Others swear their own reflection keeps smiling after they stop. And then there's the final warning from staff. Never say goodnight to the ghosts. It only invites them closer, because at the Myrtles, the dead don't just watch. They wait. The bravest or most foolish visitors who agree to spend the night at the Myrtles soon realize their mistake. The house doesn't just have ghosts, it becomes one. As midnight creeps in, the air thickens with the scent of old perfume and iron, the ghostly remnants of long-spilled blood. The temperature drops without warning, your breath fogging in front of you as unseen fingers trace the back of your neck. Then the whispers begin. Not from the halls, not from the corners, from inside the walls. Muffled voices argue in French Creole. A child's giggle rises into a scream. Some claim to hear their own name, spoken in a voice identical to a loved one's, only to realize no one else is there. And then the house breathes. Floorboards groan like a living thing. Doors slam with no wind to blame. In the grand hall, the chandelier sways violently, casting jagged shadows that seem to reach for you. The few who've made it till dawn speak of horrors no paranormal show would air. A black mass oozing beneath doorways, its surface shifting like a face trying to form. The grandfather clock striking 13 times, its hands spinning backward as something pounds against its glass. A woman's voice humming a lullaby directly into their ear, her breath reeking of grave soil. But the worst is what happens when you finally flee, because the Myrtles doesn't let go. Visitors wake for weeks after, finding handprints in the dust of their own homes. They hear faint piano music through their walls. Some even glimpse Chloe's green turban in their peripheral vision, just for a second. The locals say it plain, the house chooses who it keeps. They say every ghost at the Myrtles was once a visitor who stayed too long. In 2015, a paranormal investigator named Daniel Whitmore set up cameras in the infamous murder room. His live stream showed nothing unusual until 3:17 a.m. when the audio picked up a child's voice whispering, "You're sitting in her chair." The camera panned to Daniel, eyes wide, skin pale as something unseen yanked him backward off his stool. The feed cut to static. They found him the next morning, curled in the closet, nails broken from scratching the walls. He couldn't speak for a week. When he finally did, all he said was, "They showed me the noose. They said it's mine now." Daniel left St. Francisville that night, but his story doesn't end there. A year later, his sister posted online he'd been waking at 3:17 a.m. every night, screaming about the woman in the turban standing at the foot of his bed. On the anniversary of his visit, he vanished. The only clue, A single muddy footprint on his bathroom tiles, the sole unmistakable shape of a 19th century woman's shoe. So go ahead, book a night, stay in the murder room. Walk the creaking halls at midnight. You might check in, but you don't get to leave. Not forever. Because at the Myrtles, the dead need company. There's one room they don't list on the tour. Tucked at the end of the second floor hallway, its door is always locked. Staff refuse to acknowledge it. The oldest guest registers show it was last rented in 1927 to a schoolteacher named Eleanor Van Deventer. She stayed 3 nights. On the 4th morning, they found her still in bed, her body perfectly preserved, yet her face frozen in a scream, her hands clutching the sheets like she'd been dragged backward from some unimaginable terror. The coroner called it acute cardiac arrest. The locals knew better because Eleanor's journal survived. The final entry reads, Day 3. They've been scratching at the walls all night. Not mice fingernails. The little girl from the mirror came again. This time, she wasn't alone. There's something else here, something that doesn't like being seen. It stands in the corner breathing. It says, the rest is illegible except for 2 words, scrawled in frantic ink-smeared letters. Since that night, room 11 stays locked, but guests still report the smell of lavender perfume seeping under the door, Eleanor's signature scent. A woman's voice whispering, find the key through the keyhole. And sometimes if you press your ear to the wood, you'll hear 3 slow knocks from the other side. Because Eleanor isn't gone, she's trapped. And she's not the only one. The Myrtles doesn't just keep its ghosts. The most terrifying thing about the Myrtles isn't the ghosts, the curses, or the bloodstains that never fade. It's the guest book. Every visitor who signs it finds their name already written somewhere in its yellowed pages, sometimes from decades before they were born. The dates, always one day before their death. The staff won't speak of it. They simply smile when you ask, their eyes lingering too long on your face as if memorizing your features, because here's the secret no tour will tell you. The Myrtles isn't haunted, and it's always hungry. Final ending twists the entire narrative into something far more sinister, leaves the reader questioning reality itself, targets horror lovers who crave existential dread with their ghosts,